breaking plateaus, there's a point where doing more doesn't bring faster results and it feels like you're just standing still, even though you're showing up every day. That's for me what I call a plateau. But what if this stillness is not punishment? What if we frame it as preparation? In a newsletter that I wrote earlier this week, I call it the weekly reset. I wrote about how the idea that a plateau is life's way of forcing you to catch up to your growth. Because often at times we tend to start things with a lot of joy and we get to a point where things feel redundant, stagnant, and just not moving at the pace that we wanted to move into. So in this weekly reset newsletter, I dive into reflections of why I felt like it's so important to break a plateau. And when you get to that stage, there are things that you have to dive into, kind of shake your core belief system and yourself to get out of that funk. So recently I've been feeling like I've reached a plateau stage in my journey of, trying to build a digital community. And there was a lot of times where at the beginning I had a lot of euphoria because this was something new, something that I had never tried before. So every day I showed up with great enthusiasm, great energy to try and learn different new things that this journey was teaching me to do. And it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was something new, something exciting. And at the time I was also juggling between work and now finding this new passion. And then there's also the fitness journey that I try to incorporate in my day-to-day living. And at the beginning I felt like, oh man, I could handle it. It's just a matter of balancing things out. And what they don't tell you is when you're trying to balance things out, you can't necessarily equivocally do that for every single thing that you do. Something has to give. And I started feeling like my fitness level was not doing well. And I wasn't really feeling work the same way I used to, just because I had found this other thing that I was super passionate about. So my energy was yearning to be pushed into that direction. But at the beginning, in the first 6 to 8 months, I showed up consistently. I was very consistent and I didn't necessarily feel any burnout. But as time progressed towards the year mark, I started feeling that burnout and I felt tired. I felt numb. I started questioning the process. And for me, I'm so big on the process. Like, if you're not enjoying the journey of becoming a different version of yourself, then I feel like personally that journey becomes not as fulfilling because I think the joy comes from figuring things out on a day to day. Like the first time I tried to edit a video, I was like, I have no idea how this works, but I'm going to try. So that feeling of curiosity has always pushed me to try new things, but I was starting to lose that. So there was a moment where a week before I left my previous job, I took a sick day. I was burnt out mentally, emotionally, everything. And I remember questioning myself, like, when I am at work for 8 hours, I'm jaded by 5 p.m. Like, I'm exhausted mentally, physically, I'm tired. When I leave work, I try to go to the gym. And then after the gym, I used to try and work the community at Limitless. And every time I would work at Limitless, I would feel so energized. I would feel like, oh, man, like this is what I need to be doing. And I felt like from 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. or midnight or 1 a.m. at some points, those are the moments that I felt most alive. And earlier during the day, after putting in like an 8 hour, 9 hour day, I wouldn't feel the same passion. So this is when I started questioning, like, okay, what do I really want to do? And those feelings of being numb started translating to like limitless because at some points I would just get off work and be like, oh man, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. And I just can't do this. I'm too exhausted. So I started questioning, like, is this something that is sustainable long term? And that's not to say that it was born out of laziness or I didn't feel like doing stuff. I just think mentally I was fried and that's okay. Like you're not a robot. This is not. We're fueled by food and just other natural things, not necessarily gasoline. So I feel like at the time it was a wake up call for me to reassess the way I've been doing things because I was trying to do a lot of things at once without necessarily checking in with myself. So that's when I wanted to shift my mindset. I wanted to shift my mindset to viewing this period of plateauing as testing my patience. Am I really cut for this long term? Am I really that guy that I think that I am in terms of building something for myself and the community around me that I'm trying to like involve a lot of people and just share as many stories as I can to the world? And I felt like I had lost momentum. And I feel like in life, momentum is everything. And once you get the ball rolling, it's easy to continue to propel forward when you have like a force pushing you um, from behind. But when you kind of triple over and you don't have that momentum, it kind of needs you to start over again. And that's what I was questioning. Did I have the guile and the motivation to start over again? And I had to take a step back and analyze for like a week where it's like, okay, it feels like I'm not moving. But then if I write down the things that I've gotten better at over the past year, what looks like growth in that moment of like feeling like I'm stuck? Because often at times we tend to look at growth as this gigantic leap from beginner to expert, but there's beginner, semi-beginner, advanced, and then you go to expert. So there's different metrics of growth that we have to be careful and we have to put our mind into to understand that we're still growing. We're still coming from a place of learning, and it's just been a year. Like these are things I'm planning to do for a lifetime. So if I zoom out and look at the journey, I can definitely see growth over the past year. And that allowed me to appreciate the stillness that I was feeling. Because when you at the beginning, it was more about getting myself comfortable on camera, putting content, trying to like engage with people and stuff like that. And at the beginning, it felt very unnatural because this is something I've never done before. So you gotta be patient with yourself. You have to be patient with yourself. Let yourself grow into the person that you're becoming, right? I give this analogy a lot. Like if you think about trees and nature, a tree that is growing in Brazil will not grow at the same rate as the tree that is growing in Kenya or Singapore or wherever other geographical region is. What do I mean by this? Our levels of growth are very dependent on our environmental factors. There's certain trees that will survive in North America and certain trees that won't survive in Africa or will survive only in Africa. So you have to be very careful when you're feeling like you're stuck or you're not growing at the pace that you're growing, because sometimes it's just your limiting beliefs around your environment. So you have to be very careful and try to shift your environments from what they are today so that you can facilitate growth. Because I realized it's not that I'm not working hard. It's not that I'm not putting in the effort. Maybe it's just the environment that I've subjected myself into that is not allowing the efforts that I'm putting in to flourish. Now that's when I had to be real with myself. Okay, maybe a change of environment is going to be good for my growth process. So that was one of the mindset shifts that I kind of came into, because when you feel stuck, it's so important to track what's not changing, because those constants reveal your true foundation, right? And I think sometimes consistency matters more than speed. Like where you're going, the direction of where you're going is so important as opposed to the speed that you're going there at. Yeah, you can rush to get there and you're going nowhere. But once you have some sense of direction and strategy towards that direction, your pathway becomes more clear. So I felt like I needed to take a step back, reassess the growth of the bigger picture, and then keep moving forward, because that little break gave me a different direction of how I wanted to take this community moving forward. So I think plateaus are very important because they give you a chance to like reflect inward and then go back to the drawing board and come back with a new plan that can propel you forward and acknowledge your growth journey. It's so important to acknowledge that growth journey, because without it, we will never appreciate the version that we're becoming on a day-to-day basis. I think it's so important to understand that your journey is your journey and everything that you do will always be back to you, and how what you do in terms of progress, it varies from person to person. And my question and my prompt to you would be, what does progress look like for you when no one is watching? because I think that's where your character comes in and your growth process comes in. What we do when no one is watching is the differentiator between those who have what they desire in their lives and those who don't, because everyone can talk a good talk, but the people who actually go out there and execute are the people who tend to see results, and they execute fast with the openness to fail, succeed, and learn from all the experiences in between. So I think to tie it back to the concept of breaking plateaus that I wrote about in the weekly reset newsletter, um, I think it's so important to track your progress and take a step back to acknowledge the growth that has happened in order to break that period of stagnation, because those periods are very pivotal in whether you keep going or you kind of falter out. So this week reflection came from the weekly reset. If you want a written version of this in your inbox each Monday, you'll find the link below. And we'll be doing this moving forward with each weekly reset. We'll have a quick discussion on video format, and you can also subscribe to the YouTube, follow on the socials at Limitless Stories Community. And I will catch you next on the next newsletter. Peace.